All right then. Welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan, coming to you on a wonderful Wednesday. AfterShoX 045, I believe, or 46. Let's go look at the notes. Anyhow, it's a pleasure to come to you from Eagles Nest 2, Studio B. We gotta always ask to begin this. If you can, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Tell your friends to do so. Drop us an email anytime, ftinfx@gmail.com, or call the hotline and leave a message, 541-525-0896. All right then, let's get rocking with this episode of AfterShoX. Where are we going to begin? I think we can call this Dart Night with the Boys. Because once again, if you haven't been living under a rock, you've probably heard this whole thing with Jackson Dart introducing our current sitting president, number 47, DJT. Like him or loathe him, it caused quite a storm with the peanut galleries, and obviously with the jocks himself, nonetheless, the talking heads. And this is one of those moments where I guess you can try to be a little pious and talk about gatekeeping and probably why it needs to stop. I mean, I get it. We're in an age, we've been in an age of where people are easily triggered and they need to be outraged about something, especially when it comes to what's happening on the right or the left, or where you align somewhere in between. There are some folks who feel at no point. Because the thing is, I mean, Abdul Carter, an interesting character who has been talked about in the Foxhole many times. You know, he threw a grenade in there, and I get that he's young and probably one of those moments where you think before you hit send or put it out there. But when you see everybody else, Jamel Hill. Oh, this is another reason why someone like that can't be trusted and needs to be canceled. The people on The View with their fake outrage. Right? I mean, and it's like all you idiots need to just stay in your lane. I mean, if it's okay for everybody to BK Obama, not so much Biden because Biden was where he was at, but right, the whole point of that same crowd wanting to celebrate that and wanting to cancel somebody who says, hey, this is how I roll. Now, I know there's people out there like Brady who've backed away, which you should be neutral. If you're not fully independent like myself, if you're a big brand, you should be neutral. But this idea of all these people, and I give some of the Giants players credit for kind of stepping in and squashing it. But it's still mental midgetry at its finest. When folks are all screaming about, I don't know, this guy's creating a toxic presence in the locker room, and then you point out about the amount of people, black and white, who it looks like, they probably lean to the right and may have voted for Trump. I know it bothers people, but Trump has fans of all colors and classes. Just saying, and the idea that we are so quick to cancel and scream and yell. I mean, right? I bet I'll bring up something else here we get down the road that's in a similar vein. But right now, we just stick with Dark Night with the boys. And it doesn't matter that half the owners and coaches probably roll with the GOP. A lot of the quarterbacks, as was pointed out on one of the shows today, And isn't that okay the last time I checked? I mean, yes, you don't have to agree with the politics of a particular person or party. When it comes to rooting for your team and being outraged and seeing all the finger wagging and, oh, this is what they do kind of talk, it's just like British Petroleum, right? This idea of trying to silence folks. I mean, I get it. These moments give people like the Jamel Hills, give oxygen to the View, which is already on life support in terms of people actually giving a crap on about what's said on it. Am I lying? I mean, I saw a YouTube clip of that scene from True Romance today, and I was laughing for like 20 minutes. Anyway, you know, it just makes me wonder, where we are. And I know we can't go back to the Gilded Age. I'm not talking about that Gilded Age, but the Gilded Age of sports, where it was more about the film, where this time of the year was more about getting back into the lab and folks creating expectations as opposed to this never ending focus on all this nonsense away from the game. Especially when we're talking about a president. I don't know whether it's Nixon, Reagan, the Bushes, as far as folks on the right are concerned, or whether it's Obama, Clinton, Biden, have it been Hillary or Harris. I don't know why folks feel the need. Other than they like to hear them, they like to see what they type, or they like to hear the sound of their voice. Because otherwise, what is the point? Oh yeah, Jamel Hill, I gotta stand up for our people. What people was that? Unless you're part of that weird, freak culture out there in the interwebs, Wokeville, most people of color find you to be very tiring, especially with the silly blonde hair that you're sporting now, since you are all about being that for people. Right? Stand up like Shamika Michelle does. You don't have to agree with everything Shamika Michelle says, but she keeps it real and it ain't all about the outrage, fake outrage, I should say, like the Jamel Hills create. Another thing we have to take out of this, at least for me, thanks for putting up with the rant, because this stuff is so nonsense. It's time to drop the fracturing the locker room narrative when it comes to these teams, or any teams. I mean, I get there might be some corrosive element in locker rooms, like what's happened in soccer, and sure, in every other sport, but seems to be more documented, where you're getting it on with somebody's wife or girl, and I can see a locker room being fractured over this nonsense. But when it comes to politics or people sticking the foot in their mouth, man, y'all getting paid a lot. And at the end of the day, you find a way to serve your owner, the fans who help pay your salaries, the brand itself. It's none of this, well, gee whiz, he likes Trump. Or no, man, he's far too woke in BLM or Alphabet Mafia for me to deal with. Look at the Niners. When you've got someone like Bosa, who, he's definitely over there. He's a good example. And I don't know. I haven't heard any nuclear meltdowns because this guy, man, he's one of those when it comes to MAGA and all that kind of stuff. Rep hard or don't rep at all, right? So, yeah, I think the 49ers not getting a ring since, 94, ain't because the locker room is fractured because of guys like Bosa. So stop with this fracture the net. Excuse me, folks. fracture the locker room narrative. It's so silly. I get this time of year you need to, or at least you think you have to create content. Because after all, content before everything. We can create some controversy and drama, whether it's true or not. We're getting the engagement. Okay, I get that part of it. Maybe that's where I just am too blockheaded to get. I'm obviously talking about it, but I ain't trying to create drama. I'm more fascinated that you're trying to create fire when you know those little sparks that come off the little. Remember the little flint kit you got back in the scout days that they told you could start a fire with but never could. And that you were some Barney badass. I don't know. I just think it's just real interesting that give the NFL credit. Maybe this is another psych up to keep the league in the headlines. But man, Abdul Carter, you're on quite a roll. Coming to the league, asking for LT's jersey. Some other stuff as far as the holy rolling stuff goes that kind of rubbed the people the wrong way. I tell you, for all the waves you make, you better not be one of these busters. I mean, I'm a Commanders fan, so as you can see, I'm wearing the rare jersey that never got worn or never got worn in a real game. Yeah, that era. But yeah, I mean, go on if you want to be a buster. But yeah, you got guys in that locker room that are selling a lot of. They're trying to cash a lot of checks, and we'll see if they cash. I mean, especially now, with the Knicks about to take over Gotham. But hey, that's a whole nother story. All right, folks. We definitely got some gravy on the pot, some biscuits in the oven. Make up some eggs and get ourselves a good breakfast going here, even though it's in the evening on a wonderful Wednesday. And when we come back, we'll shake you with something else. All right, then. Hold on. We're going to do a little adjustment. Love the PTC camera. It's not cooperating the way it should. Okay, there we go. I think that's what I want. Wow, there's a lot going on campus this week, to say the least. Can't wait for what is that going to be? Fostering in a Foxhole episode. What is that? I think 316 coming up. Yeah, we're really cranking through season 10. We get to the 43K view. But in the meantime, there's a lot of stuff happening as we can throw in with this little transmission of AfterShoX. I mean, what is this segment going to be called? We're going to call this 416, 412, 16, or 4 bust. Because the one thing we can say when I throw those numbers out, there sure is a lot of conversation. Can't say that I'm surprised. I mean, yeah, there's like so many fun things that we're doing at once over here. I can't really be surprised that finally we get to a part of the year. We're like I said, I think in the last episode we're like 100 days away or less now from week 0. Folks are wanting to see, as we've been talking about, the new normal actually come to reality. I think folks are tired of this stuff getting pushed off into the years. They're tired of the wild, wild west nature of where the sport is, where brand loyalty is kind of waning. It's kind of funny that Ted Cruz and Maria Cantwell have the bipartisan bill that they're getting rid of to try to push through the Senate. Is after the score bill got killed in the House, which a lot of schools apparently wanted. Go figure. But apparently, there's a lot of support behind this because this actually has a heightened focus, true spirit of NIL. If you're Libby Dunn, go out and earn your money. But let's get rid of the other charades. Give the students, athletes, a possibility to collective bargain, become employees of the state, protect the institution from antitrust laws, and pretty much nip in the bud the endless trail of lawsuits. Fools who are like, why can't I come back and play and get my bag? BS. So I like the possibility of this moving forward. And as they said in the article, you can go look on ESPN.com. Now, to get Congress to agree on anything and push this forward is pretty landmark. And I also might throw in there that post-career health care, which I think is a major win. There's one more that it was just on the tip of my head that's very key as far as what's inside. I mean, obviously, I think you have 1-3 transfer. Coaches can't boogie mid-season and pull the Lane Kiffin. So there's like a lot of stuff in there where, as the article says, it's a win-win for everybody involved and needs to kind of move forward so we can actually get to this new normal we've been talking about for quite some time. But of course, you juxtapose this with Kirby Smart. In my opinion, not being so smart. You hear where he basically, if you remember the outcry about the European Soccer League, the ESL, the Super League, I should say, the ESL, and how you'd kill the sport and all the big marches. Well, Kirby Smart kind of hinted like the SEC and the Big Ten, obviously. Well, we could break off from the NCAA and do their own thing, which is, that's interesting. It's not an original idea. And I'm sure there are folks at the networks and sponsors who are like going, I mean, in theory, something like this probably could create some incredible matchups. But then humans are involved. So, and humans, as we all know, can mess up a cup of coffee if you give them the chance. Not all, but usually the folks who are making these decisions like this seem to be. After all, we're right. We got to the starting line in 2020 on this one, even though it was years in the making. But we're in 2026, and we're finally coming to a moment after we've had basically Soylent Green going on for the last 6 years. Yeah. You know, all this talk about super leagues and all this maneuvering as far as teams definitely being in conferences they have no business being a part of. Ooh, man. I like hearing, on the one hand, there are some rivalries, even though teams adopting a 9-game conference schedule and trying to get rid of the cream puffs. You do see that Oregon State and Oregon will resume the Civil War. Yes, The Foxhole still calls it a civil war. We aren't going to be that woke and pretend like our feelings were hurt about that particular name.
You're a hypocrite when it comes to the Redskin name, then.
Hypocrite I might be, but no, it's a civil war. 28, 29, 30, and 31, I believe, and possibly 32. The series will be back on. So I think I reported last week on the Foxhole against the Foxhole, Carolina and South Carolina discontinuing. We already know about Notre Dame and USC. And I do like when I threw out those numbers to begin the segment. You know, a lot of traditionalists, which the culture says, oh, you're old in the way, and we're not talking about that album with Jerry Garcia and friends, but you're old in the way. Stop it. There's nothing wrong with bringing traditional elements back into this. We get it. AI's redefining the world, and the culture needs to be heard and have a say in what's moving forward, but there's no reason to be educated in why things that were working before can be, I don't know, incorporated into what we're doing forward, especially where it makes sense. We've talked about setting up the original structure, a sane cause, I might add. And I think that you kind of want to have rivalry weekends. You want to have these intersectional matchups. What the hell, right? I don't know. Another one that I gotta like bring up. Speaking of coaches, because one of the provisions in the Cantwell Cruz bill about the Lane Kiffin rule, basically about coaches doing the boogie with Stu mid-season, just made me think about Lane Kiffin, obviously Mr. Sarkisian, Sark, sticking their foot in their mouths and basically spreading poo across the room when they do it. And in this day and age, where yes, it is content before everything, but I'm almost wondering, where is your team? Right? Does that mean the whole basket weaving comment, where you're kind of making fun of a university when I'm sure there's plenty of basket weaving and looking at girly mags 101 going on at your school too. If the person's good enough and don't want to go to class at this point, oh wait, we just have AI or some hottie of the French boots do the schoolwork. If you know, you really know. Oh yeah, but where is your team? I'm not talking about your team. I mean, everybody's got a team, especially when you're at that level. Your PR team, your image team, your brand manager. Where are these people to come up and bee slap you when you walk into these landmines? I mean, this isn't rocket science at this day and age, as we've been saying. The fake outrage or I need to be triggered kind of nonsense that seems to drive many narratives, many conversations. Where's your team at that prevents you from doing this kind of stuff? Are you just so arrogant you don't listen to them? In both of your cases? Especially having to walk it back so sheepish. I'm sure when it came to coming to the statement, no doubt you had your team do that. But where are they, or why aren't they consulting y'all when you do as General Henri says, stupid shit? I don't know. You tell me. All right, folks. When we come back, we'll have a little bit more fun. Stay with us here. All right, welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Kid Harlan here. Ice cold chillin' like Kavicha Karvachkelia. Only a couple of more days left. Yeah, exciting stuff there, huh? Yeah, a lot of fun content coming. Hopefully, we'll do something for Saturday with the UFA final. Also, CONCACAF final later on in the day. Gonna be a fun day. World Cup, 3 weeks away. All right, let's have some fun here. Okay, still getting used to things here. Still kind of under construction, working out the sequence using the new rig and whatnot. So, anyways, let's call this segment "All That Glitters Is Not Necessarily Gold." Let's start off with the Knicks and their dominance. Yeah, I mean, they had a closeout game where they won by 50. I mean, pounded opponents like cookie dough, basically. The question is it real? Or does Memorex think it's more about a very watered down Eastern Conference? Well, I'm going to think Memorex says it's a watered down Eastern Conference. We had our suspicions last year before certain players went down. And even before they went down, and Mr. Halliburton and Mr. Tatum, this Eastern Conference. And now, after the Knicks dispose of the Cavaliers really easily, swept them in 4, in spite of what Kenny Atkinson and James Harden say that they were the better team. I don't know. What does Simon say? Simon says, you got prison sexed 4-0. I know we didn't want to be that vulgar, but am I lying? In the words of the late, great Dennis Hopper. And the whole thing with Mr. Brunson Burner. You see old Becky Hammond doubling down? I mean, I give Becky Hammond her flowers. She's like, well, I look like, she can't be a 2-ball B, but I just be a weak B if I walk it back, and you all come at me even with more ammo for being weak and not sticking to my guns. Yes, she said about you can't win with a small guy like him. And now we've got folks who are actually making the argument that, hey, he might be the greatest Knick ever. Definitely on Mount Rushmore if he can lead the Knicks to the title. Which, by the way, after they found their way against Atlanta, what did I say? When they won the play-in, what did I say over San Antonio? Just saying, I am not shocked by the Knicks, and that's why I've been talking about them in this rise. I am impressed how well they've responded after firing Tibbs and bringing Mr. Peabody, Mike Brown in. Hey, give the guy credit. This is why you can go through a retread sometimes, and it finally clicks. Yeah. I mean, on the other side of it, okay, we kind of did the autopsy with James Harden. Let's talk about the fraudulent Big Three. You see, all those great series back in the last decade were LeBron and later Kyrie, Love, going up against the Wonder Twins, Draymond, and the cast of characters that the Warriors came out to play with. The team lurking in the shadows until a certain someone decided to join a 73-win team after they had knocked your ass out of the conference finals. So the fraudulent Big Three, Durant, Harden, and Westbrook, at this point in their careers, what does the postmortem say? Well, they are part of the story, and I would be inclined to agree if someone said you can't tell the story of the NBA without those three and their contributions. But you know how we are from the Foxhole. When you ain't got no money, and when there's an asterisk, when you do get some jewelry, see, because KD can just say, "Come on, kid, I'll grab that burner phone, grab my burner accounts, and come at you. Don't tell me I was along for the ride, getting the Warriors those rings, and if I don't get hurt against the Raptors, I got a three-peat. What you gonna say about that?" I'm gonna say, well, it didn't happen. But then again, you have the other two weighing you down. And like I just said a moment ago about James Harden, we were the better team, and you got swept. That would be one thing if Byron Scott tears his hamstring leading up to the finals, and Magic basically blows out his hamstring and is basically on one leg like it was in the '89 finals. Hats off to the Pistons, not making excuses, but it would be one thing to say that you might have been the better team if everybody were healthy. But you all were healthy, and you got swept. And yes, this next team is looking historic, and more flowers to them indeed. You know, along with this, speaking of the fraudulent three, I gotta say one of the dumbest takes I've heard this week had to come from Mr. Whitlock. He's over here talking about if CP3 doesn't get hurt, that they're gonna lead the Rockets to a title. And I was really amazed that Dre Baldwin and Scap Attack didn't say, "Come on, Jason, when did Chris Paul ever have money in his wallet?" And you can go look it up. The times that teams he was part of that somehow found the way not to win. So this idea that Chris Paul would have gotten Harden to a title and the narrative would be different. No, I think Harden wants to go back to the strip club and get those lemon pepper Lou wigs as well and have a nice cold one after hearing that kind of nonsensical tape, don't you think? I know I needed a sip after when I saw it, them having one now. And all of a sudden you forget about Chris Paul never having any money in his wallet. British Petroleum. Okay, let's talk about the other series. I don't know how we got back to that shot, but let's talk about the other series. Last night, Oklahoma City goes up 3-2. And it basically outlasted the Spurs. Wemby was kind of average. A lot of criticism today. After all, he had that generational game, and what was that one? Right, where put up young Jabbar numbers, and we're sort of comparing him, with his whole Zen and all that other stuff, and Kareem and Real Dragon kind of stuff. And then you see him being feeble. Obviously he's having to log a lot of minutes, which he probably isn't conditioned for. Other part of that narrative is the flopping and the ability of Oklahoma City to draw the whistles. I think, what was it, the second quarter, was it, that they shot 31 free throws? 31 free throws? Really? I mean, is it flopping? Or is it freaking gamesmanship? I don't know. I would like to think the Oliver Stone School is right about this, and we will have another game, Game 7, back in San Antonio. The whistles get swallowed, or they go in favor of San Antonio, because obviously with the Knicks sitting back, eating good food, sipping up pina coladas, waiting for the Western Conference Finals to end. I'd like to think there's going to be there'll be some more love for this, or not. The point being is, it goes back to. I mean, I think we were kind of spot on about the Spurs and their ascendancy. This is one of those years when you are ascending and you have that moment and you get salty, and there'll be clips of him walking off the court with a tear in his eye and that defeated look, vowing never to experience that moment again. Just feel that right now. But this is when they play the game, so we'll look forward to what can happen in Game 6. Okay. You know I can't have a segment without talking about them queens of the mofo court. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. The WNBA, I said you were drunk last week, so you're drunk this week, and you also took 3 hits of Goonie Bird, and you're tripping balls. I mean, between the old heads and the old head fans, the content creators, the whacked out media, the whacked out players, this league is just, as Maurice of Keep Division says, the gift that keeps on giving, if it is content before everything. Now, I'll tell you, some of these guys that I depend on to keep it to give me the pulse of the league, their stuff is getting a little stale. I don't think they realize it. You're on the Caitlin Clark brigade. You are making it the sole mission for her contributions and it to be all about her. You're like being narcissist for her. And when you start calling out like Paige Beakers, look, your tired ass can't even draw 6,000. The queen, she packs, she delivers. The fact that the Fever are off to a very impressive start, the Clarkites are just, they're swimming in the Kool-Aid right now. And, I mean, there's something to be said. I mean, what's the gal who was advocating violence against Caitlin Clark, which I think is a bit overblown. But once again, where is the league to step in and kind of squash this talk saying, y'all got the bag? Chill the social media, where it does look like we're a league at war with ourselves between the alphabet mafia and the pretty ones. You might not want to give that front off, or maybe all that stuff is true. It's certain folks who ride a certain way. They're not having this. It's something to think about when you see the kind of stuff I've been watching. I got to get better as far as integrating multimedia into the new platform so I can show you some of these tweets and maybe some snippets where we don't get in trouble copyright-wise about some of the nonsense in the Caitlin Clark ecosystem. And my God, did you see all the outrage from the wackos in the Peanut Gallery when she was the Grand Marshal at the Indianapolis 500? I mean, this goes both ways. People were like going, look, there's 500,000 people there. The Caitlin Clark effect, the real, look at, they came out to see her. I'm like, it is the Indy 500, along with Daytona 500, the 2 Great American races. So are you Caitlin Clarkites. They're going to be people at the Brickyard no matter what. It's just having Caitlin there. That was a nice cherry on top for all you simps. And, you know, for the community as well. But boy, the amount of hate that followed. I'm not going, well, you know, I ain't going to be watching no auto racing because we know she rolls with them. And you know, if they come to our thing, they're going to bring that kind of hate. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous how many people were triggered and felt the need to get online and make references about Caitlin Clark being the Grand Marshal of the Indy 500 in a town she plays for. A Midwest girl, perfect that everybody likes. Oh, unless you're angry and you roll that way, which nothing wrong with, just saying, you angry about something? Because you shouldn't be angry about this. Jeez, man. But yeah, it has really become the queens of sabotage, has it not? All right, y'all. We'll come back with something real momentarily. All right, all right, all right, all right. We come rolling back on the Foxhole. We finally got to that time. Thanks for putting up with all the stuff that we've been doing since we've been under construction. Inch by inch, I guarantee you, as the summer progresses, the funner this is going to be as far as things going on our platforms. Stay tuned. A lot of cool stuff happening. But then we've come to the point where we do our parting shots, or as we like to say, probable salty takes. Okay. A big hubbub over the United States men's national team. Yes, that United States men's national team. The roster drop. Yeah. Luna was left off, and everybody was screaming and yelling all of a sudden, which is kind of funny. I didn't hear all of you, I don't know, sipping for Luna in the years prior to this. Surely weren't saying he was the bright spot when they got rolled by Belgium and Portugal. But, you know, that's a whatever. The real take here is something that's been a recurring theme in the Foxhole and the cycle from the previous World Cup till now, and the one before that. This is the defining moment for this golden generation. I don't have to be Alexi Lawless, Taylor Twellman, Stu Holden, Eric Winalda, Landon Donovan, Clint Dempsey, on and on. They have their legacy, whatever it may be to all of you. But this generation, which, as I've said myself many times, you know, the bar is high, and what you've been able to accomplish as far as building American brands in Europe is very laudable. But at some point, especially when the deck's in your favor, as we all know, you all do better on your own soil than you do away from it. I mean, CP10, Mr. Pulisic, obviously not in the greatest form at AC Milan. This is your moment, honey. I mean, I know there are some questions whether or not we're deep enough in the midfield. I got some other questions in terms of, you know, our ability to defend and deal with adversity. I do like Pochettino, and I do feel that he will have an interesting game plan to get us at least out of the group stage. Because if you all thinking we go win it, nah, man. But getting out of the group stage and keeping America entertained. They're going to be entertained anyway, since it's the World Cup. But it would be nice to see an American squad make a deep enough run where this actually creates some buzz, a lot of entertainment, watch parties everywhere, where it's truly fun and really gives the beautiful game life in this country the shot in the arm that it needs. So, hey, that's my take on the roster drop. Well, now let's go to New Jersey and New York launching a probe. And what is that probe doing, Kenny? Well, that probe is looking into World Cup ticket pricing. And once again, the reoccurring theme of this podcast, that selective outrage. New York and New Jersey, where there's quite a few venues. Obviously, MSG, the Barclays Center, the place, that other arena. I mean, there's venues. The Cap Theater, Brooklyn Bowl, whatever. So you're trying to tell me that that we're in Queen Bay, the Stones, Bieber, you're trying to tell me those prices are out of the roof. And the World Cup, which obviously hasn't been here in 30 years, is kind of, once in a generation thing with inflation. That yes, ticket prices. I don't see you having a probe into the NFL or the NCAA, especially with the aftermarket, which you're all cool with. So spare me with your probe into these prices. This is a big event. And as we like to say, if it's too rich for your taste, then keep your boo-boo at home. I ain't saying, I'm down with them gouging, but I just have a problem with the selective outrage when I know certain premium acts charge out the wahoo, and they seem to be fine with it. Now that the spotlight of the world's going to be here, all of a sudden we're going to have outrage. British Petroleum. Wow. So, Vegas Golden Knights. That Vegas Golden Knights. And my man, friend of the show, Alec Ford, was there last night at T-Mobile Arena in the wonderful Las Vegas, Nevada. Love our adult beverages. So, the thing is, the Avs, they become the 13th team. That's 1-3. Yeah. The 13th consecutive President's Cup winner to not taste champagne at the end of the year. We brought this up before, and we talked about this with the Kansas City Current last year in the NWSL. This is what I love about these cups, and this is why you people, especially going back to the beautiful game life, you always scream and cry about it's unjust. No, if you're good in the regular season, we give you an award saying thanks. But the truth test is, can you carry that momentum and consistency when it's winning time? As the great Urban Magic Johnson once said. And this is another wonderful moment. 13 years in a row, the President's Cup winner of the NHL. No champagne for you! No champagne for you! Wow. Crazy. Here's another one for y'all. One that cracks me up. Something we've also kind of covered in the Foxtrotting and the Foxhole. And now the AfterShoX platform. Thank you all for tuning in. Tell your friends. Let's make this thing rock. You want to be part of this? Let me know. Hit me up. Scene as well, because we're about to flash there. Okay. After the shameless self-promo, let's get back to it. So, that's interesting. The saga of the A's. As I've told you many times, although I was never a big fan of them because, my loyalties were elsewhere. But I grew up 2 hours from there. I've been going to A's games at the Coliseum going back to, 1973? So, yeah, I'm old. But so what? Doesn't matter. It's part of the scenery. And the conversations we had. Remember when I had the doomsday clock up all the time? And listening to people about, oh yeah, man, this ain't gonna happen. And the clock getting moved closer and closer. And then, the first year at Sutter, having some hiccups. And now we're not hearing anything bad out of Sacramento. In fact, Sacramento just made a pitch to see if they can get an expansive team, saying, hey, we're proving that maybe we're worthy. From what I'm hearing, nope. But you got about as much chance as Elko, and Elko has none, as we know. But it's just interesting when you see the edifice rising in the Las Vegas Valley, in the desert sun. And all these folks who said it wasn't going to be built, and all these folks that were whining about the possible traffic and you had to put it into it. Crickets. I mean, yes, you start getting closer to the F1 race, they'll come out of their, they'll come out, or at least they'll log on to their computers or and bitch and moan about that. But I think, like everybody else, they're just kind of sitting back like, damn, this is actually happening. And yes, John Fisher is that D-bag you think he is. But it didn't matter. Mark Davis is a clown. But once it becomes an idea that Vegas can embrace, the money gonna get raised and it gonna get built. And this A's thing is gonna be hella cool when it goes online in 2028. You can already see it and feel it. And the A's are just basically saying, hey, Bally's, get your shit together. If it ain't, it's still happening whether you're ready or not. Yeah. And it's going to be curious because there's teams, they're talking expansion now for MLB. We'll talk a little bit about that Friday once I can dig into it a little bit more. But yeah. Okay. Where are we going to close you out with? Let's go with Naomi Osaka. Yeah. That Naomi Osaka. Oh, man. I wonder how exhausting it must be to be friends with her. Probably Coco as well, but I'm going to give Coco a little bit of a pass. Nah, maybe not. But don't you get tired of these folks who are privileged athletes with this, oh, I gotta be comfortable with people who look like me narrative? Now, I've been around folks my whole life, of every walk, and people who didn't necessarily like people who look like me, but I told them FYMF, ASMD, if you don't like me being around. I'm going to be around regardless. And these middle midgets who are always... Osaka had this all-black party in France. Because the French Open, obviously, Roland Garros is in full effect right now. And she tried to downplay it. I mean, Coco was there. But I'm just sitting there thinking, and people are right about... It was announced as an all-white party. But she goes, well, there are all-white. Yeah, but I doubt that they're probably from different nationalities. I doubt they are lauding that it's an all-white party. Especially you, Miss Osaka, who happens to be half Asian. I'm not sure what nationality, and half African American. But, you had to take time because of the stress. And I don't want to downplay the mental health issues here, but there is so much mental midgetry going on here, another ongoing theme. And to try to defend this with the whole, well, we need to have something for people that look like us kind of narrative. What is this people that look like us? There's some universality among people of color. Yeah, it just middle midgetry. Somebody make it make sense for me. All right, folks. I know. leaving us such a salty take. But hey, that's why it's Purdy shots and probable salty takes or possible salty takes. But yeah, that's well. All right, folks, we've reached the finish line of another wonderful episode of AfterShoX. Keep an eye out for Fox trading on the Foxhole. I think that's why is it gonna be 3:15? I think it is, or 3:16. Anyways, that'll probably be out Friday. I'm working on the season 3 debut of The Scene. Great conversation with Angie Wright. I got some other stuff in The Scene that's percolating. So yeah, that's gonna hit you fast. I'll be pushing the content. In the meantime, enjoy the adult beverages. Enjoy the wonderful hospitality with people that matter. Eat some good food. But mainly, avoid those bracelets. We don't want those kind of headaches. Not right now, as summer approaches. Stay safe. Definitely stay sane. We'll see you at 2 snaps and a twist. All right, y'all. Peace.